What's up, dialysis disciples? So, have you ever looked at your lab paper? Like, if you're pre-dialysis, you get the report, or like you're on your portal or something. And then if you're in the clinic or doing home dialysis, they'll send it to you on your iPad. And if you're in the clinic, you get a physical sheet of paper. How many of you have ever looked at that thing and was like, what are all these numbers and letters and words, and I don't know what that means? So if you ever felt like that, I'm here today to help you understand, right? So I'm Troy Sneed. I'm a 25-year plus kidney warrior, right? 2 transplants, 3 times cancer survivor. I've been through it, guys, right? And help other warriors feel calm and strong and clear, right? So you can live well, so you can thrive instead of merely survive on dialysis, right? So if you're here live, let me get a team live in the chat. And if you're watching this on replay, put team replay so I can show you some love in the future, right? And if you're watching this on YouTube, right, where we post the live recordings, right, give me a like and subscribe and comment and do all that YouTubey stuff, right? Help the algorithm so we can get more dialysis patients getting this knowledge, okay? So tonight we're going to cover 3 main parts, right? So we're going to talk about the labs and what they mean for people who are pre-dialysis. I'm noticing that a lot of you in the group, this is a dialysis disciples group, but a lot of you are proactive, and the doctor are telling you that you have kidney disease, and your eGFR, I know we'll talk about later, is dropping, and maybe they want you to get access, or maybe they want you to start prepping for dialysis, right? Also, we're going to speak to the warriors who have been in the chair, whether it's 1 treatment, 3 treatments, a year, 10 years, right? We're going to speak to you and talk about what the main numbers and labs and names and minerals and things like that in your body, what that means, all right? And then we're going to talk, and we're also going to talk about, I should say, what each lab value is and what to look out for when that number is high and when that number is low. So you know that the Father above created us, and we're a very intricate machine, right? So a lot of these numbers have to be precise, right? Not too high and not too low, so that you can operate in the way that He designed you, right? So if you're ready to get into it, type yes in the chat. Also, guys, this is going to be a really, really teaching live. So if you have notebooks, if you don't have a notebook, I suggest you get one, right? If you have your phone, go to the note section, because there's going to be some stuff that you're really going to need to write down. Now, you're absolutely welcome to watch the replay again, whether it's here on Facebook keeps these videos alive for 30 days, but after that, everything's on YouTube. A Gifted Tone Dialysis Disciples is the YouTube channel. If you go to my bio, there's a link in there, a link tree with all the ways we help dialysis patients, whether it's through life insurance, building trusts, supplements and vitamins, spiritual fasting, all that's in that link. And in that link also is a YouTube channel. All right. So who's ready to get into it? All right. Let me get some yeses in the chat. All right. Let's do this. All right. So again, we're going to be talking to today we're going to be talking to dialysis, pre-dialysis patients and post-dialysis patients. But right now we're going to start with the pre-dialysis patients. Again, a lot of people are joining the group and they're new to dialysis or about to start it. And that's a place where you're really confused. Like, a lot of information is being thrown at you, right? The doctors are coming to you from a place of like you're there and the doctors are treating you like they're at work, right? It's different if, say, your doctor is your father or something, or your doctor is a close friend. They're going to speak to you more personally, right? But think about it. When you're in that doctor's office, they're at work. You understand that? You understand that principle? right? So it's not that they don't care, but they're in that work mindset. Like they have lives of their own, right? They have wives and children. Maybe their daughter has a big softball game that night, or maybe, you know, their wife is going through something medically or something. I don't know, but they're not going to give you the same type of information from a perspective of someone who's going through it like I am. Does that make sense? Put some fires in the chat if that makes sense to you. All right, so first thing we're going to talk about, right, is pre-dialysis labs, right? So let me ask you, pre-dialysis people, if you're pre-dialysis, put a pre in the chat. I want to know how many pre-dialysis people are here today, right? So, like, have you ever looked at your numbers, right? Probably on your portal. I have a good friend of mine who's been diagnosed with kidney disease. And guys, listen, God has revealed to me that while you don't see it on the news a lot, kidney disease is something that's really running rampant in our society, right? Whether it's chronic, which means you're born with it and it hasn't matriculated yet, or you just have a lifestyle that led to it to a kidney disease, right? But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of people suffering with this right now, right? So but he tells me he has a portal he goes on, right? And so no matter where you get these lab reports from, it's important that you understand them, right? Because when you don't know your labs, like lack of knowledge leads to fear. Like we fear the things we don't understand, right? So if you don't understand them, you're more likely to just ignore them or put them in your back pocket and worry about it later, right? But when you understand them, you can't wait to look at them because you can read each number and each letters and know what it means for you in your situation, right? Like when we don't know our labs, we're in the dark, right? And we miss easy fixes. There might be some things that's an easy fix, but you miss out on it because you ignored it, right? Or you were just uneducated about it, right? Or unaware. One of my business mentors told me, and he taught me something valuable. He said, awareness leads to transformation, right? So you can't, something for your notes, awareness leads to transformation, right? So you can't transform into that thriving dialysis patient until you're aware of a lot of the things. And that's why we do these live teachings, to make you aware of the things that you need to know, right? And when you don't know your labs, you miss out on peace. And again, you can miss out on some early help, right? And things that'll slow down this critical disease. And you may be able to avoid dialysis if you just make some lifestyle changes, right? So, get your notes ready. So those of you in pre-dialysis or stage 4 or 5, bordering on end-stage renal disease, right? A lot of how can I say this? A key lab number to know is your eGFR, right? And that stands for estimated glomerular filtration rate. And in plain English, it means how well are your kidneys filtering the waste from your blood. Now, for someone whose kidneys work fine, believe it or not, there's people who take their kidney function for granted. And for us, it seems outlandish. Like most people, I know this is hard to believe, but I wouldn't say most. Maybe most, but a lot of people at least don't even know what the kidneys do in your body, right? So in case you don't know, your kidneys filter out all the bad stuff in your blood. When you eat crappy or you intake things that aren't good for you, and not only things that aren't good for you, sometimes just regular food, like even if you eat healthy as possible, there's waste products. After your body digests and take everything it needs from the food, there's still waste, right? And when that waste is fluid, right, it's deposited, it's filtered, your blood goes through your kidney, and your kidney filters it all out and turns it into urine, right? and then it goes through to your ureter, right, down into your bladder, right, and then after it does that for so long, your bladder gets full, right, and that's when you have the urge to go to the bathroom, all right, and the eGFR is a number that tells the doctors how well your kidney is doing that, and the lower the number, it's meaning your kidneys are cleaning less, right? Now, so there are things that affect that number. A lot of things. It's like, again, our lifestyle. If you have a chronic condition, meaning you were born with it, with our weight and how big we are, kidneys have to work harder. Our age, after we get a little older, the kidneys function isn't as strong. A lot of people I work with, they're not diagnosed with kidney disease until they're in their 60s and 70s, because of 70 years of kidney filtration. It takes a toll, right? And like I said, just general kidney health, right? But when you're in pre-dialysis, right, it's very important you stay hydrated, right? A good way to tell if you're hydrated or not is when you urinate. If it's a real dark brown or golden color, that means you're not drinking enough. You want it to be, every time that you urinate, it's clear. It's a clear color. That means you're getting enough of the fluid and hydration that you need, right? So, and also what's huge to control the eGFR is your blood pressure, right? A lot of people, they get end-stage renal disease or FSGS, focal glomerular sclerosis, or it's a big word. I'll save that. I'll save you the boredom, right? But it comes from high blood pressure for a long period of time that you haven't controlled. And, your parents did the best they could. They did what they knew. But if you grew up and you had a diet of a lot of fried foods and fatty foods and processed foods, that's going to raise your blood pressure. And if your blood pressure is high and you don't pay attention to it, right, that can cause kidney disease. Who's with me? Y'all tracking? Y'all quiet. Y'all quiet. All right. So I know y'all tracking. All right. I know replay team got me. Right. So how do you feel with a low eGFR? Just so you know, you'll be tired. Like, oh my goodness. Your body will swell up. Like your legs will swell. Your face will get fat. You may have around the waist, right? And your urination pattern might change. When you get really far into kidney disease, you won't urinate at all, right? So just watch your urine. Stay hydrated. Watch your urine. See what it looks like. And if it's dark colored, make sure you drink a lot of water, right? What's good for blood pressure too is a lot of berries and a plant-based diet. Now, if you're gonna start a plant-based diet, be careful because a lot of the quote-unquote vegan stuff is processed, right? And that's gonna create a whole nother problem for you, right? And that's something I can help you with, right? So what's your step when it comes to eGFR? So ask your nephrologist or doctor when you see him, right? What is my eGFR, and where would you like to see it, right? Let them know your goal. Say, I want to keep my kidneys till I'm 80, right? Let them know that, because when they're coming up with your treatment plan, right? If you show that you're educated, and this isn't something they consciously do, I don't think, but if you show that you're educated in your care, they'll do better. I know that doesn't sound right, but like, let's say you walked in there slumped, depressed, don't care, don't ask no questions. They're just going to check some boxes. Does that make sense? But if you ask them questions and educated questions like, what's my eGFR today? And what's a safe goal for me this month? They're going to be like, oh, this person's into it. I got to get on point, right? Who's with me? Let me get some twos in the chat if y'all with me, right? All right. So the next lab value that you guys should understand when you're pre-dialysis is your creatinine, right? Not to be confused with creatine. So creatinine, right, is a waste product in your blood, right? if your kidneys don't clean well, your creatinine will go up, right? So how can I raise or lower it, right? So so believe it or not, when you're working out and you're building muscle, right, your creatinine is going to go up because you're creating more waste as you burn the fat and turn it into muscle. Where do you think that goes? It's a waste product in your body, right? So again, you have to make sure you drink a lot of fluids, right, to prevent dehydration, right, and and keep that creatinine number down. So whatever kidney function you are working with, by drinking a lot of water, it'll help your kidneys filter it, right? So if you have a high creatinine, right, you're gonna have nausea and fatigue. You're just gonna feel like crap, right? For those of you who are pre-dialysis, right, and you just feel like crap all the time, and you may be thinking like, man, like what am I doing? What can I do? It's not you. It's your kidneys. Your kidneys, I hate to say it, they're giving up on you, right? And that's why dialysis is a blessing, because dialysis can keep you alive, right? And as you progress through kidney disease and on into dialysis, it's important that you have the mindset that this is a blessing. It's not a curse. I'm not being cursed with dialysis. The mindset is, whew, my kidneys ain't working. Thank God that I can receive dialysis treatments. Think about it. What if you're a poor kid in the middle of, Serbia or wherever is or Palestine or whatever is a war zone, and you have kidney disease and you can't get to a dialysis center, right? Do you think those people are like, man, I gotta go to dialysis? They'd be so happy if they had a dialysis machine. Who's with me? Put some fire in the chat if that's something that switches your mindset. All right. So also, you ask your doctor, is my creatinine changing fast or slow? Right, because that'll give you an idea of how your kidney disease is progressing and how much more you need to drink and how you need to change your diet, right? Right. Ask your doctor, what's one habit I can change to slowly, reduce my creatinine, slow the creatinine growth, right? So there's another waste product also in our blood. It's called BUN, right? Blood urea nitrogen. It's another waste number. I'm not gonna get all to what all those big words mean, but when you're dehydrated, right, or have more waste in your blood, that number goes up too, right? And that's more of a dehydration number, right? So if you have high creatinine and high BUN, when you are able to lower your BUN by hydration, that'll in turn affect your creatinine. Does that make sense? So drink a lot of water and high protein. But here's the thing. It's very important that you speak with your doctor and your dietitian about your protein, because the protein is probably the most critical balance number, right? If your kidney function is low and you eat too much protein, it'll spill into your urine, right? And that's called proteinuria, right? Which is another sign of lessening kidney function, right? But then, as you know, if you don't get enough protein, that's going to affect your BUN number. And the higher that number gets, the worse you'll feel. You'll feel foggy, headaches, nausea, and you just feel like crap, right? So it's important that you speak to your doctors and your dietitian on how to manage your protein. Most likely they'll give you a target number, right, on what you should be achieving on a daily basis. So if you're pre-dialysis, you're going to have to pay a lot more attention to your health and your daily habits. That's just how it is, right? Ask your nephrologist, is my BUN high from dehydration, or is it from or is it from a high creatinine? Like, what should I change this week? These questions get your doctor thinking and knowing that you care about your health and you're not just some box to check. Who's with me? Fire's in the chat. All right, fire's in the chat. All right, what else we got? So those are key terms, right? But it's also important that you focus on your electrolytes. Have you heard the word electrolytes before? Yes, in the chat, if you heard the word electrolytes. That's the word that we use outside of kidney disease. We use it in the out in the world too, when it just comes to working out and things like that. So electrolytes are just tiny minerals your body needs. That makes sense. So in other lives, we talked about potassium, right? So potassium is electrolyte. It's another one that you have to really balance. And there's no I haven't really learned, like, some people have low potassium and some people have high potassium, right? And there's different ways to attack that, right? So if your potassium is too high, it really threatens your heart, right? And if it's too low, you get cramps and you're weak, right? But here's the thing: food and medicine affect your potassium. You might be taking a pill and not knowing that that pill is raising your potassium, right? If you're feeling irregular heartbeats or chest fluttering, right? Or if you have that restless leg thing, right? Those are signs of electrolyte imbalance, and most likely it's your potassium, right? So ask your doctor for a personal K plan. So K is the abbreviation for potassium, right? And also when you start dialysis, and I'll get to this in a minute. My wife just got home. That's what y'all heard. When you start dialysis, and again, I'll get to this into a minute, there's ways to switch this and help this out while you're on the machine. Another electrolyte that you have to pay attention to is called phosphorus. And phosphorus is a big one, right? Most kidney patients, and you're going to learn this once you start dialysis, right, is phosphorus and potassium. Those are the most diet-connected electrolytes and minerals, right? Phosphorus, when it's real high, right, it'll cause itching and even bone pain, right? And it'll have long-term artery hardening. I know it sounds horrible, right? But unlike potassium, there is stuff you could take for phosphorus. So once you start dialysis, one of the things you'll have to do is you'll have to take phosphorus binders, meaning every time you eat, prepare your mind. Every time you eat, you'll have to take 3 or 4 of these pills, right? Now, what happens is, because the dialysis machine doesn't really filter out phosphorus real well, right? Because the phosphorus molecules are too small for the filter in the dialysis machine to catch. We'll talk about that at a later date, right? So you have to take these phosphate binders, meaning when you eat and you take the pills, the phosphorus in the food will bind to those pills, right? And then you'll number 2 them out, right? So when your phosphorus is high, again, you'll itch and your bones will hurt, right? So, just like with the potassium, ask your doctors and nurses, doctors and dietitians for a P Smart grocery list. So P is short for phosphorus. Get a grocery list. On my refrigerator, I have a list, right, for my wife when she cooks for me, right? And it has high and low potassium foods, high and low phosphorus foods. If you want me to send that to you, just put list, LIST. Put list in the chat, and I'll send you a list of the foods that are high in K and high in phosphorus, and low in K and low in phosphorus. Okay, I could do that, guys. Do that for you. All right. The next number you want to be aware of is calcium, Ca, and PTH, parathyroid hormone, and they work together, right? So after it affects your bones and your blood vessels. So calcium and phosphorus and PTH, parathyroid hormone. So your parathyroid is right here, right? And based on what your body needs, I'm telling you, God created us very intricately, right? And based on what your body needs, your parathyroid hormone will secrete the messages to your body on how to handle the calcium and the phosphorus, right? Come on, guys. I know this is valuable for you guys. Hope you guys are taking notes, right? But over time, it affects your bones and your blood vessels, and all that stuff works together. Remember what we said about phosphorus, right? So you have to keep them in a safe range. You might be having muscle cramps and bone pain, same thing, right? Or tingling in your hands and fingers when these numbers are off. And again, this is stuff that affects dialysis patients and people on pre-dialysis. Now, if you're experiencing any of these things, you should talk to your doctor and let them know, because you might need dialysis um, now or faster than you may think. So, guys, it's important. If the doctor's told you you're in pre-dialysis and you have kidney disease, late-stage kidney disease, don't ignore it, right? Because it's easy to ignore, because you may be feeling these things, or you may be asymptomatic, right? And that's what happened to me, right? So I talk about it in my book, A Gifted Tome, The 40-Day Spiritual Fast for Dialysis Patients, right? And in this book, I break down my story, and I connect it to Bible verses and reflections and fasting component. But early in the book, I talk about how I was asymptomatic, right? When I got the news about my kidney disease, I was in the Marine Corps, right? And I was young. I was in my early 20s, or 20 as a matter of fact. And when I heard this, and I knew they said, hey, you're going to have to get out of the Marine Corps, I was like, yes, I'm free, right? It didn't affect me like, oh, no, my kidneys are going, right? So it's important that you're educated, guys. Right. Ask your doctor, what's my PTH trend? And are we adjusting vitamin D or binders? Right? Because this is all stuff you can do while you're in pre-dialysis. Also important number is bicarbonate, or your CO2. So, like, this is the level of acid in your body, right? I know, guys, this is a lot. That's why I said you need a notebook, right? And to be perfectly transparent, I'm reading for some notes here, because, this is something I've learned. I had to gather my thoughts to put it all together, because, this is something I don't want to make sure I get this wrong for you, right? But also with when your bicarbonate or your CO2 is off, right, it'll make you feel draggy. You'll lose muscle, right? You'll have deep fatigue and sore muscles, right? And also what I've noticed too is that when your bicarbonate number is off, like you'll get you'll get nauseous. Like when you eat, you'll be burping, and you just have sour stomach, even if you don't eat nothing crazy like dairy, right? Because your bicarbonate is off. And once you start dialysis, that's something they'll adjust when you're on the machine. All right. Another one is albumin, right? So your albumin is just a sign of your basic nutrition, right? Low albumin means you need more good fuel, right? If your albumin is low, it means you're not getting enough protein. You're probably eating a lot of carbs, a lot of simple carbs, a lot of stuff that's not giving your body nutrients. Maybe you eat candy and a bunch of stuff that doesn't give you any nutrients, but it makes you feel full, so you don't eat, right? So that's gonna make you feel tired too, because you're not getting the proper fuel, right? So albumin, write that down. It's important one. And the last one I want you guys to write down and talk about is your hemoglobin, right? Your hemoglobin and how it relates to your iron, right? So low hemoglobin is what's called anemia, right? So anemia, so hemoglobin and your iron level go hand in hand, just like the phosphorus and the calcium and the PTH, right? Again, our body is very intricate. God created us very intricately, and things, they all work together, right? So when hemoglobin is low, that's a sign too that your kidneys aren't working, because your kidneys secrete something called EPO. It's a short for big long word that I'm not going to bore you with, right? But that signals your body to create red blood cells. And red blood cells are what carry oxygen throughout your lungs and your body. So when your body is not getting that, you get tired, right? And iron feeds that. The iron works together with your body to produce the hemoglobin. So ask your doctor what your hemoglobin numbers are. If you're around 15, that's good. If anything below that, then you might be facing something in the future. So let me ask you this, right? Have you ever thought, your doctor said you may need to go on dialysis really soon, right? Have you ever thought about, and this was me, like, I'll deal with all this when I have to. I feel just fine, right? Is that what you've been telling yourself, right? And I shared my story about why that's not the right mindset, because one day out of the blue, I was symptomatic. My blood pressure was like 250 over 140, something crazy. Again, I talk about it. I talk about it in the book, right? If you really want to understand, you pick that up, right? Links in the bio, right? So if you ignore it, it's gonna crash on you. Don't ignore it, right? So pre-dialysis patients, here's your action steps. Each month, ask your doctor, what's my eGFR and my BUN trend? Is it trending? Are they trending up or down? Right? And then take action. Right? Watch your salt. We don't want to make your blood pressure go up. And make sure you stay hydrated. Right? That's how you can slow your kidney damage and stay off of dialysis for the longest time as possible. Make sure you check your K and P. We know what that means. Your phosphorus and potassium. Right? And ask your doctor, or your dietitian, what's one food swap I can make this month? And then start working slowly for surely. Who knows? You might, you praying to God, you're doing a spiritual fast like in the book talks about. Maybe the good Lord may bless you. We know He is the great physician, so He can reverse your kidney disease just like that, right? And you have to know that, right? Remember, eat protein, not too much, not too little, right? So, we also offer, right? If you want this, put SUPS in the chat, SUPPS. So we have some energy drinks, no sugar, no carbs. All right. We have supplements you can take for your heart health, and all those types of things that can help you. Right. We have protein. So if you want me to send you links, you can peruse that. Put SUPS in the chat, right? And again, always talk to your doctor first before you start taking something that's new. Got that pre-dialysis people? All right. Now let's talk to the dialysis guys, people, the veterans, right? The veterans who've been on dialysis for a number of times. Maybe you're new, and you refuse to even look at that lab paper. As soon as they give it to you, you throw it away. Right? A doctor tell me if something's wrong, right? But it's important that you know these numbers. We already talked about the reason why, right? So, all right, first key lab I wanted to put in plain words for you is KT over V. Have you ever heard the doctors and the nurses and the techs say KT over V and URR? Right? It's called urea reduction ratio, meaning how well are you being dialyzed? So when you're on that machine and the machine is cleaning your blood, you need to know how well it's doing it. If it's not doing it well, maybe you're doing 4 hours, maybe they make you do 4.5. If you're doing 3 hours, maybe they make you do 4, right? I shouldn't say maybe they'll allow you to, mind shift. Maybe they'll allow you to do more time, because that way, your only kidney function is happening when you're sitting in that chair. If you're home, when you're sitting in that chair, right? So if those numbers are low, you may feel very tired or nauseous or foggy. We did a training last month about mental fog, right? And one of the things we talked about is what kind of dialysis treatment are you getting? Are you getting a good one or a bad one, right? Another term you may hear is called dry weight and IDWG. I know you hear dry weight, but I'm not sure if you know what IDWG is, and that's called interdialectic weight gain. Basically, plain language is how much fluid are you gaining between treatments, right? So your dry weight is the weight you weigh naturally. If you don't have any extra fluid on, what's that weight, right? And your IDWG is how much fluid you gain between treatments, right? You don't want to come in there with 4 kilos, right? If you don't know, 2.2. So take your kilos, multiply them by 2.2, and then I'll give you your weight in pounds. So if you come in the clinic with 8, 10, 12 pounds on, man, that's going to be a tough treatment. And the more you do that, that's the more pressure it puts on your heart, right? You want to be cognizant of your fluid and make sure you pay attention to the fluid restrictions that your doctor puts you on, right? So we learned about potassium already, right? But for dialysis patients, people already on the machine, it's very important because you don't really feel it. So here's I don't want to I'm a humble guy, right? But God has blessed me with some pretty deep knowledge about this dialysis stuff. So the doctors would tell you there's no way to know if your potassium is high or low, right? They call it the silent and deadly killer, right? But I'll tell you something. Sit still, right? And then put your head back like this. If you feel dizzy, like you're going to pass out, your potassium's probably high. You're welcome, right? Remember that. Write that down, guys, right? So phosphorus. We know phosphorus. If you're itching, make sure you take your binders. Now, there's a lot of stuff like we need the doctors. We love the doctors, but a lot of times in these lives, I give the doctors a hard time because they're more about information. I'm more about transformation, right? But we're on the same page with phosphorus. You gotta take your binders. Even if you eat something high in phosphorus, make sure you take your binders, right? You don't want the itching and your bones like your bones. You don't want your bones fragile. That's not something you can get back, right? So you want to keep as much bone density as possible. Even once you get a transplant, if your bones are weak, It's going to be a long time before you can get that back, right? Even if you can, right? Also, you'll get artery issues. There'll be your arteries and will clog up, right, with too much phosphorus. Guys, that phosphorus, that's the thing that's going to stack up on you, right? If lab after lab, your phosphorus high, that's the thing that's going to take years off your life. I'll just put it to you simple like that, right? And we talked about calcium and PTH with the pre-dialysis people, but for dialysis people, it's definitely part of a rhythm, right? And again, they all work together. So if your phosphorus is high, right, your bones have to. So how can I say this? So if your phosphorus is high, right, your bones will draw calcium because calcium kind of it combats phosphorus. So when your phosphorus is high, where's your body going to get calcium from? Your bones. So it pulls the calcium from your bones to combat the phosphorus, right? And then when all that's going on, your PTH hormone, like, what's going on? I gotta send this signal out. So I'm trying to make it as simple as possible that they all work together. And the best way to handle that is just to keep your phosphorus low. Take your binders, avoid fast food, be easy with the chocolate, and know your fat, and know your phosphorus, and know the foods that cause high phosphorus. Again, put LIST in the comments, and I'll send you free of charge. And this is something you could probably get at your clinic too, but when I send it to you, it's going to be more about transformation and information, right? So, for me personally, story for y'all, you already know how I wasn't living the right way and doing the right thing on dialysis for a long time, right? And my PTH went out of whack. So what they had to do is called a parathyroidectomy, right? So to prevent the parathyroid from pushing out that hormone that it thinks your body needs, but it's really hurting because your numbers out of whack, right? They go into your parathyroid and they cut pieces off of it so that it won't be as active. I know, it's crazy, right? But I was stubborn and didn't listen. So what they did, because they can't keep cutting here because there's something that's here that they can't keep cutting here, right? So what they did is they moved it to my arm. So part of my parathyroid is right here. I know, guys. It's wild. It's wild, right? So, but I can tell you, all this can be avoided if you just take your binders and slow down your phosphorus intake, guys. When you get these numbers and you keep having phosphorus above 5.5, just know you might not be feeling bad, but you're doing your body damage, right? And again, we learned about calcium and how it all works. We talked about bicarbonate and how the sour stomach feeling. And again, once you start dialysis, this can be adjusted. That number can be adjusted with the machine, right? Have you ever heard the machine beeping and beeping and beeping? You ask the tech what's going on. They say, "Oh, I have to change the bicarb," right? If they're constantly changing your bicarb and adding bicarb, it's because you might have some high acidosis, and that comes from diet, guys, right? All right. We talked about albumin, protein. So we don't have the same issues as people with pre-dialysis when it comes to protein and proteinuria. We need to just pump protein, protein, protein in our bodies. Protein is for healing, and protein is energy on the machine. And I could probably do a whole training on the power of protein in dialysis patients. Just know that when that albumin number is low, that means you need more protein. That means you need to eat a more nutritious diet. Not a lot of candy, not a lot of rice, not a lot of pasta, right? You need to put some protein. Again, if you're interested, we have protein shakes, we have protein powder, we have protein bars. You want more protein? SUPS, SUPPS in the chat, and I'll send you a link where you can look through the site and pick any supplements that you may want. All right. Again, hemoglobin, we talked about that before, but again, it's a little different for dialysis patients, right? So we know what we learned is red blood cells, hemoglobin is the number that tells how much red blood cells you have. And red blood cells carry oxygen to all your organs. So when your organs aren't getting enough oxygen, right, there's fatigue and sluggishness. And that's called anemia when the number's real low, right? I remember my hemoglobin got down to 6.5 one time. And I remember I couldn't even walk up the steps. I would do one flight of steps and be totally out of breath. I have to sit down and lay on the bed, right? Like that's fatigue that's beyond just a dialysis treatment. That's internal. That's hemoglobin, right? And that's from your kidneys not working, right? So people with working kidneys the kidneys produce what's called EPO, right? And what the EPOgen does, right, is it does what your kidney don't do. It's a synthetic hormone that your kidney supposed to put out, but they give it to you in shots. Maybe they give it to you in the machine, or you get a shot, right? So that signals that's in your body because your kidneys don't know how to put it there, right? So some of you, just as some more inside information, right? If you are anemic and you have low hemoglobin, ask for EPO. And here's the thing: if they want to give you something called Macera, talk to your insurance company. For me personally, Macera doesn't work. It's the cheaper version. So if your insurance wants to save money, they're going to give you Macera, and hope you don't ask or notice. Tell them, no, I need Epogen. I got that? Write that down. Put in parentheses in bold letters. No, I need Epogen, right? So, all right. So just like we know, everything goes hand in hand. Now, Epogen and iron go together, right? So ferritin, so TSAT, that's how much iron's in your body. So your iron labs measure your stored usable iron, right? So you need iron also to raise your hemoglobin. So I'll put it to you this way. Let's say, you have, how can I say? Say you have to make deliveries in a truck. Say you have a business and your trucks are making delivery, right? The truck is like the red blood cells. You follow me? Walk with me, guys, right? The the iron is like the metal steel that makes the truck, right? And the EPO is like the boss saying, get out there. We need more trucks. We need you to push. That makes sense? That analogy makes sense? So it all works together, right? Your iron and your hemoglobin, right? And I feel good right now. I get Epogen, and I have a lot of energy, right? Because I'm doing the right things dietarily. I'm living out my purpose. I'm doing what God called me to do. And those things right there give you more energy than you ever believe. Right now, as I'm talking to you guys, doing what God's called me to do, I'm fired up. Like, I have so much energy right now. I'm so pumped up because I'm doing what God called me to do. When you start doing what God called you to do, it gives you energy, right? And, I know I keep putting this book up, but because it's so important. If you don't know what your purpose in life is, get the book. When I wrote the book and I did the fast, on day 38, I'll never forget it, he led me to do this to help you guys. He let me know my purpose and my assignment was help dialysis patients, right? So, guys, another question for you. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, right? like all these numbers, you get these papers. Like you ever think, hey, the clinic will handle that. I'll just show up, right? But what if you're not knowing your numbers help you avoid cramps and itchy and fog, right? So here's action steps for my dialysis people, right? Ask each month your doctor, your doctor when they do the rounds. Don't, maybe you ask the nurse. Don't really ask the tech, but ask the nurse or the doctors, like, is my KT over V and URR adequate? Am I getting enough dialysis, right? And here's the thing, you really gonna blow their mind. You say, is it possible to get more dialysis? They're gonna be, huh? Right? Because nobody wants that. Right? But when you understand how important dialysis is for you in your life and how it gives you more life, you're gonna want to do more treatment. I know that's blowing some of your mind. I know some of you like, man, I hate going to that place. But just think about it. If you weren't going to that place, you wouldn't be going no place. All right. Watch how much fluid you gain during your off days, right? Find your sweet spot, right? With salt and sips, right? And that's important to your cramping on the machine, right? The more you go higher you go between treatments, is higher likelihood you cramp on the machine. And I'll tell you what, everybody here knows, if you're on dialysis, how hellish cramps are. Cramps might be the worst part of dialysis, right? Not to scare you people who haven't started yet, but if you do these things I've talked about in this live and you do them right, you won't have any cramps, right? Make sure when you get them lab reports they send you, just make sure to check your K and your P and act accordingly, right? And make sure you pump up your protein on treatment days. We got all that, guys? All right, real quick. Everything we talked about. eGFR, creatinine, BUN, right? That's cleaning. That's kidney cleaning and waste. If it's low, your kidneys clean less, right? You might feel tired, swelling, changes in urination. Like most waste stays in your blood over time, right? Again, ask your doctor, what's my eGFR trend, and give me one step to protect it, right? High creatinine, more waste building up, right? Nausea, fogginess. Ask the doctors, is this from kidney function or from dehydration? BUN high, too much waste or not enough fluid. You might feel headache or brain fog. Ask your doctor, should I adjust my fluids or should I add more protein or lessen my protein, right? Remember, potassium is too high, heart rhythm, chest flutters, right? We're gonna learn and know high and low potassium foods, right? Find out what medication you're taking, if they're causing high potassium, right? Your phosphorus, if it's too high, itch, bone health, right? You might just feel crappy, right? Make sure you time your binders. Make sure you take your binders if you're on dialysis, right? If not, ask your doctor, what should I be eating that will control my phosphorus? We talked about calcium and parathyroid. We know how that affects everything, goes wonky when the number's off. We know about bicarbonate, CO2, and how that could cause stomach issues, right? We know salt, too high, raises your blood pressure, right? High blood pressure means kidney function in the toilet, right? Albumin, that's your nutrition marker. Are you eating right? Hemoglobin, iron, we already talked about that. I gave you that weird analogy about the trucks and stuff. Hope that made sense, right? So ask your doctors on dialysis, guys. Do I need EPO right now? Remember, EPO over Macera, right? Make sure you ask about your adequacy. Am I doing good with my is a dialysis machine cleaning my body, right? If not, can I do more dialysis? You're gonna blow their mind, right? We're not drinking a whole lot of stuff between treatments. That's the best way to get cramps, right? And if you're diabetic, know your A1C. We didn't really talk about that number. I'm not a diabetic. I don't really have a lot of information on that. But we work together and you have diabetes, I'll make sure to learn more, right? But ask your doctor, what's a realistic A1C goal for me, right? And one daily habit that can help it. All right, guys. I'm going to close with a couple biblical stories like I always do, just so you get a better understanding. So, and again, whenever I bring up these verses and these stories, I suggest you read them so you can get full context of what we talked about, right? So if you're ready for a biblical tie-in, put a Bible emoji in the chat. You know what that is? Put a Bible emoji in the chat, right? So, first verse, Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Man, that's a whole nother live training. That's a whole nother, that's a whole sermon. But just know that God wants us, knowing the truth that keeps us safe, right? And that's knowledge and information and it's things you learn from this live tonight. And when you don't understand your labs, you're vulnerable, right? And my people are destroyed. You're vulnerable to destruction. I know that's harsh, but not knowing your labs leaves you vulnerable to destruction, right? It's in a word. Also read Genesis 41, the story of Joseph, right? God gave Joseph wisdom and the ability to read signs and understand dreams and plan for the future. So think about it. Your labs are signs too, right? They're signs of what's going on in your body, and you can take action to fix it, right? God invites you to read and respond so you can thrive, right? And not just merely survive on dialysis. All right. So if you found value from this live tonight, hope you guys took notes. That was a lot. Hope you guys took notes, right? But before we close, I wanna ask you something, right? So, how many of you on here tonight, like really, right? Think about this. How many of you wanna feel calmer and safer and more in control because you finally understand your labs, right? And have you a simple plan you can follow. If that's you, I got an offer for you, right? So you've seen how confusion about lab, right? About labs leads to fear. It leads to cramping and itching and brain fog, and just missed opportunities to fix it before it gets worse, right? You learn how clarity can just change your day. A little bit of clarity, right? So if you're done guessing and want a clear step-by-step plan, type or DM coach, right? And listen, I'm not the know-it-all, be-all, but I'm pretty experienced. I think I showed you that through this live, right? And it's very hard to fix all this stuff and learn all this stuff on your own, right? Even though we had a really intense live and a really comprehensive live, you'll still have blind spots, right? You'll still have salt and fluid habits and potassium and phosphorus swaps and, not know dialysis bath settings and your KT over V and your dry weight and anemia support. Like, I'm here to help you with all that. You don't need more random tips or doctors walking around just to check a box and say, watch your phosphorus, right? You need the right steps for your body, right? So, that's what I specialize in. I help kidney warriors like you and future kidney warriors like you build a personal, I'll call it a lab literacy playbook, right? So you can read your numbers, know what they mean, and know exactly what to ask and what to do next without being overwhelmed, right? And quite frankly, that's just one of the things I do. If you're here on this live and you've watched other lives, you know that I've made a gambit of offers on ways that I can help you, right? So DM coach or comment coach, right? And we'll hop on the phone, no longer than a half hour, 45 minutes, depending on what you're going through, and we'll talk about a strategy for you, right? Maybe we'll talk about your top 5 labs, or what actions you can take. We'll help you draft questions to ask your doctors and dietitians, right? Most people get at dialysis, you get a stack of papers and you feel at loss, like we talked about, right? But we keep it simple, right? Because it's one-on-one and designed for you, we make sure you understand it, right? When they give you those labs, that's not especially for you. They hand everybody that thing and just put different numbers in it. Right? Come on, guys. So, we do this so we can show up for God and our family and our legacy and our health. Some of us got spouses and kids and people who love us, so we got to be around, right? We have to have stewardship over our body, right? My people die from lack of knowledge, right? So if you're ready, comment or DM Coach, and I'll reach out personally to you, and we'll talk. You're clearing your labs and whatever other things you're going through in your dialysis journey, right? You know, and to keep it doable, right? I made sure I had 2 spots open this week, right? So if you DM me, Coach, or comment, Coach, we can get you in right away. All right. And lastly, if you need kidney-friendly protein and renal multivitamins, comment SUPS, SUPPS, right? And I'll send you a link to the marketplace, right? So, in closing, I promise, if you do the work, right, you'll move from lab fear to lab clarity, right? You'll have a daily rhythm, something just for you, right? You'll go from reacting to leading. Come on now. You go from tired to steady and strong, right? So again, if tonight helped you, type value, right? Replayers too, value. When I see value in the chat, I know, wow, all people learn some stuff, right? All right, guys. So that's all I got for you tonight. This was a little longer one than normal. A lot of information, right? But when we teach information, it's for transformation, right? So let's go, guys. Comment Coach, DM me, Coach. And let's figure out how to get you going, thriving on dialysis, right? Stay strong, guys. Love you all.